Paul Gurua House is going to commence this evening with a welcome to country. Thank you, Paul.
Amandangu, Warrigawari. Thank you, Beth, and Naramarang, Yarimarang, Jumburuburu Marambang. Good afternoon, everyone. You and Paul Gurua House. My name is Paul Gurua House. Nadu Maradu Mare Biringo Gujigango Nyambri Cambri Nuru Nurumbango. I was born here at the centre of my ancestral country at the Old Canberra Hospital. God bless it. Anyone born in the Old Canberra Hospital? It's great to see hospital alumni here this afternoon. Our belonging is important. And in language we call belonging gialang. And we all have a belonging, and we also have Niawa Gunangijo, which is our identity. So it's important for us, First Nation people, Indigenous Australians, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Our belonging identity is everything to us. It means so much to us. So Baladu, Nadu Baladu, Nyambri, Cambri, Wogulu, Wallabaloa, Nunawu, Radri, Gibbi, Nyang. I'm a Nyambri, Cambri, Wogulu, Wallabaloa, Nunawu, Wiradri man. I speak Wogulu, Wiradri language. Wirai Nyang, Wirai Mayin. No language, no people. Wallawan Mayin, Wallawan Nurabungal. Healthy people, healthy country. So with that, Yilangalangbo, Gibabango, Wogabo, Migabo. Dira Nilbang Mayin. Ladies and gentlemen, young men, young women, distinguished guests, Nyari and Jamali, Nyambri, Cambri, Wogulu, Wallabaloa, Nunawu, Nagarigo, Wiradri, Mujigang, Yanangbu Jayandu. Our respects, my mother's respects to all, to Nyambri, Cambri, Wogulu, Wallabaloa, Nunawu, Nagarigo, Wiradri people, elders past and present. Nyari and Jamarabu, Mujigango, Nurumbanjigu, Ninya Yiridu. Our respects to all people, First Nation people, from all parts of the country, Nyambri, Cambri, Wogulu, Wallabaloa, Nunawa, Mayin, Gaimbanya, Ninyoga, Nurumbangaldara, Nyambri, Cambri, Wogulu, Wallabaloa, people welcome you all to country. Noya Goyamalang, Marambangbalang, Nina Nain Muraburamba Bira, Goyambana Nina Nurambango. It's wonderful, it's beautiful to be here on behalf of my mother, Dr. Matilda Williams House, to share this welcome to country with you all today. I notice I might be the only male in this room here. Might be outnumbered, but I feel comfortable. Actually, Yinjamara Bala Nama, Dr. Matilda Williams has my respects to my mother. Because of her, I can. Because of her, we can. And because of all of our matriarchs, we can across the country and the land. Without our matriarchs, us men wouldn't be here, essentially, fighting for country, fighting for our identity on country. So Nadu Wudagabigi, Balabambo Gubu, Balagibang Gubu, Guingulela, Dumbalina, Murraway, Marambo. We listen to the old people, the ancestors, the elders, and they show us the good path, the right path, the straight path. Guingulela, Bilingali now, Yamamali now, Wallamali now. They nurture us, they guide us, they protect us. Mara Muru, creating pathways, Muru Waro, on track, Dulagang Muru, straight path. Mamba Wara, Naminyagu, Wuragabinya, Wuradarego, Winningala Gubaligo, looking to see, listening to hear and learning to understand. Niani, Injamali, Nurabangila, Balanin, Wallinga, Gangbo, Bangbu, Yanangingo, Niani, Mawang, Yao Biligigila, Yaman Giri, Yani, Marambu, Bagarigan. We look after country so it is healthy for all our children, the next generations, and we teach and we learn what is right for all on country. Muramaginya, Yinjamara, Muramuru, Wirumbira Nurumbango. Living a respectful way of life cares for country. Yinjamara, Wirumbira, Marandogobo, Giragobo, Yandogobo. Respect is taking responsibility for the now, the past, the present, and the future. Yinjamara Bala Bayami, Wallamara, Maramaldine, Umbai, Yukambraki Bay Mulian. Respecting our creator on country, our creator and protect the Bayami, and our key totems, the crow and the eagle. Boya is law in language on country. Boya, Niawa Gunangijil is our identity. Mawang is the relationships we have on country. Mara is action, the action we take. Mara is your hand in language. Numbai, Bula Bula, Numbai, Bango Mara. Mara is your hand, but Mara also means 5. Mara is 10, but Mara means to create and to make. And Nina, the focus we take in everything we do. And finally is Wayana, which is the transformation. All of us, the transformation. No one ever dies, we just transform in here in the southeast and right across the country too. So with that, our welcome to country is always made in the spirit of peace, harmony and reconciliation for all people of modern Australia. And our main aim as local custodians is to establish an atmosphere of mutual respect through the acknowledgement of our ancestors and the recognition of our rights to declare our special place in the pre and post history of the Canberra region. The name Canberra is derived from the name of our people and country right here, the Nyambri, Canberra, Canberra. And when Europeans first came here to our country in the 1820s from Sydney, out of Sydney Cove, and they came here to country and they met our old people, and they asked our old people here along the Canberra River, which is the Molongoola River, which was laked into Lake Burley Griffin, but also the Canberra Creek here, which got rebadged and branded as Sullivan's Creek. They asked our old people, what do you call this place? And our old people didn't respond by saying the barbecue area. The different response, the different versions of our language came back. Nyambri, Canberra, Namburu, comes from the word Namburu, that means to sleep, to camp, to lie down. So the question, language is very important on the journey of understanding our history, our family's history on country. So our welcome to country is always made in the spirit of peace and harmony. So, and it's based on Yinjamara, Yinjamalgiju, Yinjamarabu, a powerful Wiradjuri way of life. It's an ideology, it's a concept. It's a good nutrient word. It means many good things: to go slow, be patient, be polite, be gentle, take responsibility, uphold. Yinjamara, Yinjamalgiju, Yinjamarabu, respect, respectful, respected. Yinjamara bala wing girambanana nuru bala bua guru gambiro banganara. Respect is in the warmth of the campfire, in the possum skin cloak that shelters all. Yinjamara bala walam wanga dabu murmadan dabu bama yu guru gambira. Respect is in the grinding stones and the carved trees made long ago. Country Yinjamal giju wijinga yina wangara dagada papa yirinigu. Respect is in how our matriarchs dig for yams in Mother Earth. Injamal Giju, Wagadai Nandu Dangawa Bumira Daganda. Respect is in the soles of the feet of our old people walking on country. So with that, the law of the land talks about Yinjamal Giju Main Galangbu, Yandu Main Galangdu, give respect and honour to all people from all parts of the country. Injamal Giju Ninyagir, then people will respect you. Maragaladal Walan Mayan Mayangalang, hold fast to each other, empower the people. Walangunmala Mara Maragure, be brave, make change. Diriyawana Murawara, no one bitter. We get up, we stand up, we show up. Wonderful, we're all here, and I'm glad you were able to meet my matriarch, my mother. My mother was the first Indigenous Australian to be awarded an honorary doctorate here from the ANU just recently as 2017. My mother 2 years ago was the Senior National NAIDOC Female Elder of the Year. And 3 years ago, Mum and I provided the welcome to country at the 47th opening of federal parliament. And we don't take that for granted because politicians come and go, and so do their bureaucrats and the bureaucracies. And so that was nice. But Mum was the first Indigenous Australian to ever provide a formal welcome to country at the 42nd opening of federal parliament, the day before the national apology, and also the 43rd opening of federal parliament, when she supported Julia Gillard, calling out misogynism in this country, which we see a lot of in parliament, in the upper and lower house. And also the 44th opening of federal parliament for our good old mate, Tony Abbott. And Mum was the 2006 Canberra Citizen of the Year as well here on country. And Mum provided and established all our services, our legal services, our land council, the health services, our youth services, our women's services. So because of her, Mum was a founding family, a founding family of the Aboriginal 10 Embassy in 1972. And I'd like to say to all of us as First Nation people, contemporary modern Aboriginal people, our old people never gave this country up, never ceded sovereignty. Our land was stolen without consent or treaty, and we've never been compensated for these losses on our country. So with that, And we want to see our children grow up in a society that acknowledge, respect and honour First Nation people. And we're entitled to a greater share in their wealth and prosperity as well. Mara mara nye 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 gira mara mara nya. Respect shapes us and lifts up the people. Mara mara winanga gigalana mai. And respect creates people who care for each other. So noya goy malang, it's beautiful. Goyambana nina nurambango. Welcome to country, Mandangul. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Paul, for that fantastic welcome. I would like to acknowledge that we're on Ngunnawal country and to pay my respects to elders past and present, and especially to Paul's mum, Auntie Matilda House, who has been involved in this program. I'd also like to extend that respect to all First Nations people here in the room and those who are online too. So my name is Beth Marsden. I'm a non-Indigenous historian and postdoctoral research fellow working here in the School of History. And I just want to welcome you all to this forum on Indigenous women's history research. So we're inviting you into a conversation that we've all been having for the past couple of weeks, as well as we've been taking part in the most recent iteration of the Research Centre for Deep History's Indigenous Family History Research Residencies. It's just quite a mouthful, as well as some longer conversations that have been unfolding since the first program ran in April 2024. So that program and this event tonight have been made possible through the funding of Professor Anne McGrath's Kathleen Fitzpatrick Laureate Program, Rediscovering the Deep Human Past Laureate Project, which is funded by the ARC and ANU, and through the ANU Gender Institute, who have very generously supported this program through 2 funding rounds and who have provided the opportunity for us to have this public event tonight. So thank you so much. So I think before we begin, I'd just like to provide a bit of an overview of what the Indigenous Family History Research Residency is before we begin our conversation. So the Research Centre has hosted 3 family history programs. In the past year, we've had 39 participants come through the program to come to stay at ANU from all over the country. We've received more than 100 applications for the program, as well as many more phone calls and emails from people interested in the program and wanting to stay informed about any sort of similar programs that might come up in the future. So the first residency was in April 2024. That one was just for 2 days. And the second in November 2024, which ran for 2 weeks. And the current program is an 8-day program, and that finishes up tomorrow. So the program is a mix of site visits to archives and libraries, self-directed research time, and seminars and workshops, the majority of which have been delivered by an incredible cast of Indigenous historians. So Professor Jackie Huggins, one of the first Indigenous historians in Australia, who is, I almost feel like there's no need to introduce her, has published widely and nationally, including her very critically acclaimed and award-winning biography, Auntie Rita, which she co-authored with her mother. Dr. Shauna Bostock, who is the Indigenous editor of the Australian Dictionary of Biography here at ANU, and the author of the award-winning Reaching Through Time, Finding My Family's Stories, which was published in 2023. And Shauna has been a huge part of this program and made some fantastic contributions. We've also had adjunct professor / Auntie Judy, who is a leading historian of exemption in Australia and globally, and whose own family history has been subject of some of her numerous publications and have been groundbreaking in generating new knowledge in the field. And Dr. Kath Travis, a historian whose work focuses on critical archive approaches and family history methods, who has most recently produced a documentary, Art Dreaming, that explored how to support Indigenous women doing family history research. And I just want to acknowledge that Kath and I are friends and we've had many conversations about this program. I just want to acknowledge her support and intellectual input into the program. The program has also benefited from the expertise of non-Indigenous historians who have provided additional support. This includes Professor Kat Ellinghaus, Professor Bruce Skates, and of course, Professor Anne McGrath and Dr. Catherine Agner, who has been essential in providing on-the-ground support. We've also benefited from the incredible support and partnerships that we've built with key institutions, national institutions here in Canberra. So that includes the family history team at IATSIS, working with Steph Williams and her amazing team, the Indigenous engagement team at the National Library, many of whom are here. Give us a wave, Robin. And Rebecca and Lisa, thank you so much for coming. The Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander engagement branch at the National Archives, especially Margie Duke and Penny Robb, have been fantastic. And also the ANU's own archive team, and we've been working with Sarah Lethbridge in that space. I would also like to mention that for this program, we have been working with Justin Church and Glenys Church of the Connected Purpose, who have been providing social and emotional wellbeing support for the group, and this has been a really crucial addition to the program. So within all of this expertise and institutional knowledge and access to the archives, what we've put at the centre of these programs is the expertise of the participants, what they want to get out of the program, their prior knowledge and lived experience, and the stories that they have brought to the program. So each program has built on the experiences of the previous group, and we have used all of the feedback that has been really generously provided by these two groups to inform the next program. So I just wanted to really acknowledge that it's the generosity of the feedback that's been given by all of the participants and their ideas and knowledge that is really the key driver of the program. So I have some of the feedback that I'd just like to share as a bit of a backdrop to our conversation, and we'll talk more about this as we go. But before we do that, I'm going to stop talking, and I would like to invite you all to introduce yourselves to the audience and to speak a little bit about your involvement in the program. So Annie Judy, would you like to start? Do you have a microphone over there?
My name is Judy Wicks, or Annie Judy Wicks, and now Professor. It's quite a long way from a young girl that had dyslexia. In fact, I got dyslexia, hyperlexia, auditory processing problems, and I'm short-sighted. So when students say to me, I can't do this, I said, you can do this, you know. And my involvement is with the ARC grant. For 3 years, we've got funding to go around the country and look at the certificate of exemption, because that's something my grandparents got, or my grandfather, and my mum knew nothing about it until in the late 1980s we were going through his papers after he died. And I looked at mum and mum looked at me. We didn't know what this piece of paper was all about. And so I decided to go back to uni and do an honours and masters looking at the certificate of exemption. And 20 years later, here I am.
Well, thanks, Aunt. I want to firstly just say thanks to Beth for putting this together. And I also want to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people whose lands we're gathered upon today. And I thank Paul for the very generous welcome. In fact, listening to language, I'm extremely jealous. But it's a beautiful thing to have Paul welcome us to country today. My name is Kath Upma Travis. I'm a proud Islander woman and Bowendik woman, so I have connections, ancestral connections to Alice Springs and to Bowendik country, southeast coast of South Australia. And it's hard to get used to the fact of being someone calling me doctor because it's just a new thing for me. I am a third generation stolen generation survivor. I was removed from my mother in 1965 at the age of 3 weeks. And I suppose that's what's taken me on this journey to understand what family history looks like. I submitted my thesis in May of last year. I did it creatively, so I somehow decided I'd put together a short documentary, which my children think it's quite funny because I don't know how to use my iPhone. My thesis was titled Talking Black, Finding and Owning First Nations Voice, Belonging and Connection Through the Archives. And I titled it Up My Dreaming, which is my connection to my family in Alice Springs. And so, yeah, that's what's brought me to this program, and lots of yarns with Beth about the importance of how we do family storying for First Nations women.
Thanks, Auntie Judy. Hi, my name's Kat Ellinghouse and I'm a Professor of History at La Trobe University. I'm a non-Indigenous historian. I'd also like to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people on whose lands we speak today. Uncle Paul, as you were talking, I wrote down go gently and with respect, because as a non-Indigenous historian, that's what I'm trying to do in this space. I'm privileged to be here on this panel and also very privileged to work very closely with Auntie Judy on the ARC project that she mentioned and that hopefully we'll talk a bit more about later.
Hello everyone, I'm Charlie Alsop and I'm here as a total beginner in the archives. I'm a Bundjalung woman, and while I'm here I found out I also have Kamilaroi belonging, which is really special and beautiful surprise. But I live currently in Brisbane or Meanjin. I am a full-time university student studying my master's to produce a book. It's a creative writing master's, and yeah, watch this space. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful welcome. And I'd like to acknowledge where we are today. My name's Chick Edwards. I'm originally from Boromina, so that's on the Nemba Nation. I am currently on Yagle country, which is on the Northern Rivers. We're on a little island called Woodford Island. By trade, I'm a classroom teacher. At the moment, I work for the Department of Ed as a senior policy officer in the corporate space. And I've also done some writing for the New South Wales syllabuses, putting Aboriginal content within the syllabuses K to 12. One of the reasons why that I have applied for this, it was an expression of interest, was I know I'm Aboriginal. We've always known that, but we haven't had that opportunity to have a yarn with my mum. My sister is quite sick and she's held on to that information and is unable to share. So I wanted to do this for my family, my kids, my grandkids. And I've been so honoured to meet so many people that are so willing to share their time, their experience, their love of our people, our old people. And I hope you get something out of tonight as much as we've gotten out through the time that we've been here.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name's Natasha Majid. I'm a very proud Withithi and Torres Strait Islander woman, originally from Thursday Island. I now reside in Mackay, Yui country. I am a Indigenous Learning Support Officer at one of our local schools, studying my Bachelor of Education. My reason for applying for this program was basically because I wanted to help other people who couldn't find their identity. So working in schools, I come across a lot of the parents who didn't know where they came from. And so hopefully, or I have, learned some tools to take back for them. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I thought we might just start by talking a bit about why this is important. Why is family history important? And Charlie, I thought maybe you could share with us what it was that sparked you to apply and what you found so far through the program.
Yeah, so I was a really weird little kid. I felt like I never fit in with my uptown obsessions, quoting some aunties there. I was obsessed with France, castles, musketeers, World War I. When the other kids were singing The Gypsy Rover, I was singing The Furies, Green Fields of France, so you could hear me around the house. Well, how do you do, Private William McBride? They were drawing all pictures on art paper in class, and I was trying to copy Claude Monet's water lilies, and I was obsessed with Impressionism. And so I did not fit at all in my rural, poor housing commission upbringing. I couldn't wait to get out. And so one night, fast forward a few decades, I was in bed in really just upset in a really difficult season in my life, very low. And I randomly, for no reason that is known to me, Googled my great-grandfather's name, William Olive. And up popped an archive that I'd never seen before that suddenly made sense of me and my weirdness. I saw that it was a war record and that he, in fact, as a Bundjalung man, 100 years ago, had served in France, had seen the castles, was in the same fields that Monet was in when he was painting the water lilies. In fact, Monet went on to donate his big water lilies as a gift of healing for the soldiers who suffered in the fields of France. Therefore, Willie, therefore my Willie, my William. I saw that while the Treaty of Versailles was being negotiated in Paris, he was there. And so I know the power of a single archive to change a life, and it did change my life. I went on to graduate with a Bachelor in Creative Writing and Literature. I wrote a book. My debut book won the Queensland Literary Prize for Fiction Book of the Year last year. Thank you. And I spent 4 months last year following my great-grandfather through France, and I saw the castles and I gazed at 100 Monets, and I felt like I belonged and I was no longer excluded. And so I applied because I thought, if that one archive could change my life, what else don't I know and how can I find it?
Well, thank you, Charlie. That's fantastic. Did you want to say something, Chick? No. Thanks for that fantastic story. What an inspiration. We're often, or I'm often asked, what are the outputs of this program? And this is, you know, being in a university, often centred around publications. And while this is an aim for some of the participants, certainly to complete a book or to go back and begin writing a book, for other people who come to the program, it's really about looking for their family story, just for their family. And I hoped, Chick, that you might be able to talk to us a bit about what you have called the quiet achievers in your family and why you think that their stories are important, not just for you and your family, but also for a more general non-Indigenous public to know about.
Yeah, thank you. I've been within the education system for 33 years. I've started out as an Aboriginal education officer, and we see those quiet kids. When I started school, we started in Biwarna, and we were quiet. We were made to be quiet. That was just the way we were. The system was. We had moved around because my dad was a stockman and my mum reared us. We've got 8 children within our family. And I see my uncles and how they had been shearers, had been rouseabouts. As my dad was a stockman, who's non-Aboriginal, my mum's Aboriginal, who just got on with life. The hardships, the racism, that wasn't a word. That wasn't a word that was used. We just knew that when we went to the movies in Biwarna, we sat on this side, non-Aboriginal people sat on that side. We just knew that that was just one of those things. But my uncles, who were one of my uncles were very quiet, but got on with the job, got on with everybody. It didn't matter who it was. He was a well-known cook, a well-known and wanted around the sheep farms and wherever he went. And I often think that my mum had worked so hard, just quietly got on with it, made sure that we were respectful towards people and that we presented ourselves and that we did the right thing. They're the quiet achievers that we sometimes forget about, the people that just, yep, we've had it a little bit tough, but we'll just keep going. We'll just do what we need to do for our people and for other generations to also see that we've done that. We don't have to be trailblazers in anything. As a teacher, you teach all children about Aboriginal education, about Aboriginal Australia, because that's what we're passionate about. That's what we need to ensure that everybody knows. And this is an old saying everyone knows that white Australia has a black history. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chick. I also just wanted to ask you, Kat and Auntie Judy, a bit about how important family history is to within the big academic sort of project that you're undertaking at the moment.
Well, I think it's very important. We've done two. Oh, sorry. I started this 2018 when I met Kat in Shepparton when we were doing our first symposium with my supervisor. It was Lucinda Aberdeen, who is my honours and master supervisor, and we thought we need to get this out, get it out around the country. And so that's when I met Kat. And I think it's so important because people all know about Stolen Generation, but they don't know what happened when people were taken to reserves, if they stayed there or what happened to them. And my grandfather got an exemption in 1926, the 25th of March, 1926. That was the day he became a non-Indigenous person or non-Aboriginal person. And so when I was growing up, I would say to Mum, who are we, you know? And she'd always say Australian. So I had no history. I had no background. I wasn't black, white, Chinese or Aboriginal or what I was, but we were just Australian. And that was the policy, that we weren't allowed to talk to other people. And so we had that symposium in 2018. 3 years ago, we had one at my university, at the University of Sunshine Coast, where we had, it was during COVID, so we had a few people there, but majority of people were online, and it ran for 2 days. And so this year we decided to take it out to the community. So we're doing a number of morning teas around the country. We did one on Sunshine Coast last year. We're looking at Palm Island and Gympie this year, as well as going to Perth. And I think when we wrote up this project, I don't think we sort of thought of morning teas. We didn't think what we were going to do, but we knew we were going to do something, and something that would help Aboriginal people find out who they are. But one of the main things I've just written down here myself is I've heard incidents where brothers and sisters have separated, or families are separated and they had children, and brothers and sisters marrying and having children. And the old ways, you wouldn't have done that because everyone knew who they were and who they belonged to. And I think it's so important. And I think that's why a lot of Aboriginal people married white people or stayed with white people, because they were fearful that they would be marrying or being with someone that is kin. And so I think that's a very important thing. And so, yeah.
Yeah, as Auntie Judy just said, we've been working together a long time with a big team that includes another elder, Auntie Keller Robinson, and the project's really shifted probably, I think, in the last year. As Auntie Judy said, when we wrote up the latest iteration, I think we were still caught in the academic world a little bit. And Auntie Judy didn't mention that we've had quite a lot of really important academic outcomes and books and articles come out of what we've done. But as we've gone along, I think we've realised the importance of people's own family history and lived experience. And so we are trying to use this project to promote that in whatever way we can. So in addition to the morning teas, which we're going out to try and spread the word about exemption, but also to ask communities what they would like us to do, we've got small grants for people who are doing family histories. We have a website that helps people who are doing their family histories. If they think they've got exemption in their family, they can get in contact, no charge to, we can pull from the records that we've been able to look at. We've got young Indigenous early career researchers researching their own family history. So, you know, there's been a lot of ways in which we're trying to make family history central to what we're doing. And, you know, I was thinking when you were talking, Chick, about, you know, white Australia has a black history. I was talking about this with Beth this morning, that it's when you hear people's family histories and their stories that is when, as a non-Indigenous Australian, you get a greater understanding of what we need to understand in this country. And it's because you see it as a, a personal lived story. I can stand in front of students all day and talk about history and, policies and things like that, but it's those stories that we need more and more of. So I think it's probably the most important thing we can be doing. So congratulations, Beth and Kath and Anne and everyone who's done this program. It's amazing.
Great, thank you. So I think in addition to talking about why family history is important, one of the big components of the program has been about improving access to archives, and obviously the centralisation of records in capital cities, but also in places like Canberra, presents as a real barrier for people who are wanting to find out about their families. And I was thinking when I was preparing for this about Jackie Huggins's book Auntie Rita, where she writes about sitting in the Queensland State Archives and watching two white public servants flick through her mother's file while she was made to wait to be handed the file. So I thought maybe, Kath, we could start with you to talk a little bit about how important you think this aspect of the program is about going into the archives as a critical mass. And I think that that's sort of reflected in the feedback. And based on your own experiences of doing family history research and how you've seen the program address that and overcome that.
Oh, it's such a big question. I wish that I'd had this program when I started my family storying way back in 2014, 2015. I declared to myself that my mother and I needed to fill in the gaps in our story. She kept saying to me, I don't know where we all belong. And I said, well, okay, well, I'm going to go find this information. And so I was off into all sorts of places, archives, libraries, museums, and I had awful experiences at each and every one of those places, trying to get access to my and our family's records. And at some point, Karen Jackson, director of Mundani Balak Institute at Victoria University, contacted me and she said, come in and meet with me. I want to know what you're doing. I said, look, this work is really important. So I went in and I had a conversation. I was excited that somebody was interested about what I was doing. And I thought maybe they might be able to help me. But somehow the table turned and she said to me, we can help you. You can come and you can do your honours degree. And I had never been to a university campus before at that time. I was 53 and I said, yeah, sure. And then sure. And then Tony Birch was my supervisor. So sure, like this is all good. I'm going to write a book and I've got Tony, so it's got to be good. As I continued through that process, I just realised there are things that we don't know as community, as families. We know that we've been surveilled, we know that we've been removed, we know that we've been disconnected, but we don't know where all that information has been held. And so I ventured deeper into that place and completed my honours degree by self-publishing my family historical biography, titled Mini Mama Me, the Black-Headed Snake, after my mother and my grandmother, and Black-Headed Snake being my totem. These are things that I've, on the journey that I learnt. And then all of a sudden I got A1 honours and went on to do a PhD. And the PhD really was about me focusing on how can I model what I've done to find my family story with other women? Because that's important. People just were unaware in community where their stories lay. Because it's not like through ancestry, we don't always get it generationally passed down. So how could I model it? My mum was really serious about this. You have to go and do this with other women. So this program is so significantly important because without that, without having the access and the tools and the staff that we've been able to make connections with, all of the participants wouldn't be able to have so easily the access that they've been able to have. And we know coming into this program that some people may not find what they're looking for, but they've been given some tools and some skills to do something beyond this program, whatever that might look like. And we've talked a lot about books as, people want to write their story, but there's all sorts of ways in which you can write your story, however way whatever way you want to re-author that story that makes sense to your family. I call those things the family cultural artefacts, the things that you can generationally pass down to your children. For me, that was important. My mum said, we need to know our story. I wanted my children to know. I want my grandchildren to know. I don't have my book with me here. It's a coffee table size book, created big so that my children wouldn't lose it, particularly my two sons. If they're watching, I'm sorry. I bet you they still don't know where that book is. But most importantly, what I know now is that my grandson, he's 5, my oldest grandson, he comes into my office at home and he says, Nanny, can I get our red book out? And he can open that book and he can see the family, people he may not have ever met in his life, but he knows who they are and he knows their story. So I think that's what's important. This program is significantly important for empowering First Nations women to own their story, to tell their story in the way that they want to tell it, because most importantly, it's about healing our way.
Thank you. I just want to also acknowledge the work of the institutions who we've partnered with in sort of bending over backwards to accommodate this program and to go out of their way to do research before we arrive, looking after us while we're there, and also when the participants have gone back to the institutions during their self-directed research time to be further looked after and assisted as they've done their research. It's just been fantastic. So I'm just slightly conscious of time, and I'm going to jump ahead to talking about the support from Indigenous historians. And I have this fantastic photo of the group from last year with Auntie Jackie at the National Library. And this is, she was giving them a final pep talk before she left. She had to fly back to Queensland. And I wanted to ask you, Charlie and Chick, if you could talk a little bit about what it's been like for you to meet and learn from the family historians that have been part of this program.
Yeah, I have 2 answers and 2 quick examples. And I think the first one is that when you approach an institution, like you walk up to the National Library or the National Archives or whatever it might be, it's just utterly intimidating because you feel like an uneducated nobody who has no right to be there. And when you then have a history of being excluded from history, it's compounded and it makes it worse. And so my example of how I definitely feel like I've overcome that through what we were shown and taught was that when I went to the National Archives and I finally got to sit with the real life war records of my great-grandfather William Olive, the real one, not the digitised one, and my great-great-uncle John's as well, whom I discovered in this process. So I was sitting there in that room and it was really special. But when I opened Uncle John's, there was an envelope in there that said, this can't be opened for 30 years from 2002. The past me would have just thought, oh no, that's terrible. Like I'll have to come back in 7 years. The new me with my new knowledge and support just went straight over to Bill and asked him what could be done about that and could it be done by Friday, please? And within 48 hours, Bill had done that. And he'd not only had it opened, but he's completely had the digitised online version of the war record updated. So anyone and everyone in my family now can have a look at that. And that was really special to learn that you have a right to ask for access. And my second answer is what it's been like for me is when I told you about how I got to go through and trace and follow my great-grandfather through the Somme offensive and the Ypres salient, which he lived through both of those long offensives, being wounded at the end of both of them, I got expert guides and I really went along experiencing these exact places. They do, of course, not look at all like what they looked then, but my guides would have the photos like with them of what it looked like, and I could look out the window and see and look at what it was like when he was there. And so I really had my feet on that country and my senses fully immersed. So when I then went to the Australian War Memorial and I walked through the World War I exhibit, that history came alive. It wasn't dates and names and these ethereal, unrelated battles that white men tell about in books. It was an experience that I had a connection to. I could see those places, I could smell those places, I could feel my feet in the Somme River. And again, I'm in no way saying I had my great-grandfather's experience. Of course I didn't, but I know those places in history came alive and I felt a connection, and that's inclusion. That's not exclusion. And then my final part of that story is they invited me to lay a wreath. And remember little Charlie, who was obsessed with the green fields of France. And there's a line in that talked about how the pipers played the flowers of the forest. And as I laid the wreath, I didn't know this would happen, but the piper played the flowers of the forest. And I had that moment of understanding that this was always the stories I was going to uncover. These were always mine. I was always included. And so that gives me confidence, to go forward.
Thank you, Charlie. Chick, did you want to maybe talk about what it's been like working with the Indigenous historians as part of this program?
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't sure what to expect. And then when we walked in these massive buildings that were very much European built and not many Aboriginal perspective in mind, but the people behind the desks, the historians, Aboriginal historians that were willing to share their prior knowledge, the passion, but the emotion that came out when they were telling their stories was just mind-blowing, because we all have stories, but to hear from different nations and from different perspectives and from different levels of where they had come from and where they are going to. I'll give a quick example of, we went to the library on the Friday, I think it was, and because we drove over here, my husband and I and our elderly staffy, 9.5 hours, and I said to my husband, you need to come back to the library. So we went back to the library and my husband searched some of his family, but I also found my sister's grave, because this beautiful young girl behind the counter went that extra mile and found the plot.
Thank you, Chick. I can see that we're getting close to time, and we'd like to invite some questions from the audience. So just going to bring us to the last point, which is to talk about, I suppose, what for me has become the most important outcome. Sorry. So Tasha said, you have to comfort me, and now she's comforting me. So Tasha's been waiting to answer this question, and we were talking about this yesterday just briefly in the car, not in the bus where I've had many of my favourite conversations, but in the car. And I think that, what I've learned through the program is that having the historians, their expertise, the support of the archives is really important, but what a big takeaway is having a group together to do this work as a critical mass, and how important that is. And Chick had, the feedback from the last group was, you might need to do something like a weaving circle for the next one. And I thought, okay. And I talked to Kath, and we were like, yeah, we'll try to do that. And then Chick sent me a message and said, I thought I might run a weaving circle. And I'm like, that's fantastic. Thank you. That would be great. I've already got the time slot ready for it. So that was a really fantastic opportunity to bring people together. And I think that maybe, Chick, if you can just talk briefly about that before we come to Tasha to talk about sort of the bigger connections beyond that.
Too easy, thank you. I do love weaving. I'm no good at it, but I still enjoy doing it because it's very relaxing, it's therapeutic, and it's our connection to the earth. And I thought it'd be a great idea to just sit down and have a yarn, because we're all nervous. We've all basically just met each other, sizing each other up, where we're from, who's your mob, that process, and just sitting down, but making sure that we're relaxed and that we're comfortable to have a conversation and to be proud of where we have come from, where we've been. No judgment about anything. We also made sure that we followed protocol by speaking to Aunt Matilda to make sure that we were able to do that little session in the grounds, on country, and also if we wanted to use any materials that may have been lying on the ground to incorporate in that weaving. I think that's really, really important that non-Aboriginal people especially be aware of that. You can just say, yeah, let's do a weaving session, but it's also making sure that you get permission to do that. I'm off country. I'm just paying respect as I would expect that to happen if that was to my mum or to my auntie as that as well. But we just morphed into what we were doing. We just said, yeah, we'll just sit around and we'll do this. But it was so much more than that. It was having that conversation of, you know, working at the stitches, trying new stitches, learning from our younger one who was 23, who was so deadly, teaching us as well as we were teaching each other as we were going. And it was, I really loved that. That was amazing. And we did continue that throughout the couple of weeks that we've been here. We'll go and knock on someone's door and say, oh, I've got a needle and would you like to weave? And that was really good. So we really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Dick. I think that that talking about the connections, and Auntie Matilda, when she gave the welcome at the beginning of the program, she talked about the importance of connection. And this is what I was trying to say before I had the tiredness overwhelmed me. And that's that it's not just about the connections of this group, it's about connections across the three groups, and the way that they are ongoing. I think that that's really key. And Tasha and I were talking about impact and how can we know what might happen next, and then told me your fantastic idea for what you think you might do next. And I think maybe we will just end by you sharing that as a way to sort of bring it together. Thanks.
Thanks, Beth. Well, I'm not sure which plan I want to go with. Within the first 12 hours, I had 2 ideas of a book that I wanted to write about my own family history. And then I sat back and thought about it the other night and thought, you know, yes, I want to do my own book like these amazing authors that are sitting beside me, but I want to help people. And how can I do that? I've just learned all these skills. What am I going to do with it? You know, I didn't want to keep it to myself. They are just invaluable. This journey, this program is just incredibly empowering, especially for us women. And the insightful information that we've learnt over the last few days have just taken me on this journey. My head is just all over the place some days, but I'm incredibly grateful for being here. I've learnt so much, and I'm very inspired by our historians, all the staff at the venues that we had visited over the last few days, my peers, they've been amazing. And I do want to mention my daughter. She was one of the participants in the very first intake. So she was up there earlier. But I had a brief conversation with her the other night and I said to her, you know, we've got these skills now, what do we do with it? We can't just keep them to ourselves. And as you do, I guess she's also studying her bachelor too. So when you've got that mindset of teaching and wanting to give back to your community, we came up with the plan and decided we would like to give this opportunity back to our community, take it back to Mackay and do something similar. So with all the inspiration we've drawn off everyone, we are hoping and planning to form a mother and daughter duo and use the tools that we've learnt to share with everyone else and help them on their journey of self-identity and finding their family history so that I guess we can then create a collective understanding of all our histories, of our shared histories.
A fantastic idea. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And maybe one other piece of feedback that you had and told Tasha to pass on to me was, why don't you get Beth to organise a reunion for all of the groups in a couple of years' time? So we're already thinking about how we might do that. I just want to wrap up. We've really run out of time. Thank you all so much for coming and for listening to us. Thank you so much to the panel for your generosity in sharing your stories. And also to all of the 39 participants who have been part of this program. It has been a privilege. So thank you.